Hey guys, welcome back to our Q&A and ADHD discussions here. I think we have a few new listeners or viewers in these Facebook Lives. So let me tell you a little bit about myself if you are new here. My name is Gabriel. I run ADHD counseling in the Roanoke Valley, my private practice that I obviously specialize in ADHD. Practice has been open for about a year, and ADHD is my passion. I have ADHD. That's kind of how I found this niche. And I help children and adolescents and even some adults who are struggling with ADHD and trying to find their way, and also trying to find their strengths. And they're just kind of trying to survive with their ADHD. I teach them, or I help them learn to use their strengths to thrive with their ADHD. A little bit more about me. I have my master's in clinical mental health from Radford University. Let's see, what else about me do you guys need to know? I don't know. If you guys want to know anything else about me, you can feel free to comment below, and I should be able to see them as they come through. But let's just jump into it real quick, because today we had one of our viewers asked if I would talk about some parenting and disciplinary tips they could use for their kids. And I thought, absolutely, it's such a great topic. I don't know why I didn't think about it before. So parenting tips, dealing with discipline. The first thing I'll say is don't get involved in the big struggle. The big struggle is what Dr. Ned Hollowell, who's written all of the books on ADHD, it's what he coins the term of. It's sort of a back and forth that can last forever. And he encourages his parents to not get involved in the big struggle with their ADHDers because it's never ending. And what's happening here, or what that can look like, is you telling your child, no, you're not going to do this, and them coming back as, yes, I am because, and then it's like, no, you're not because of this. Well, yes, I am because, and then it's a back and forth, and it becomes like a power struggle of wills, basically. And the ADHDer will always, quote unquote, win. And by win, I mean they will always have the last words, even if they're 100% wrong. And the reason for this is on a neurological level, on a brain chemical level. What's happening in these arguments, this is also why you should never kind of get into a prolonged argument with an ADHDer. So if it's lasting longer than 5 minutes, the problem probably will not get solved. So what's happening on this neurological level is that we are getting a hit of dopamine during these conversations, or during these arguments. There's stimulus coming at us, and that's good. Dopamine is the chemical that's kind of been coined the replay chemical that tells our brain that's good, keep doing it. But our brain doesn't distinguish, oh, I'm going to get in trouble because I'm arguing with mom or dad, so stop doing it. It just knows I'm getting something that's good because as an ADHDer, I'm understimulated, and now I'm being stimulated, so that's a good thing. I want more dopamine. I want more of that replay chemical, so I'll argue back, or I will have something else to say, or I want the final word. And it's just back and forth, and all you're doing is kind of feeding that need for stimulus, which is why it's called the big struggle, because it's never ending. So what I recommend to the vast majority of my parents, what I recommend them doing is be very, very concrete and finite with any kind of discipline or punishments. So it may be something like, if you decide not to study for your exam tomorrow and you fail it, you cannot go to your friend's house this weekend. So it's very cut and dry. The client or the child decides not to study, they do fail, they come back, hey, can I still go? No, you can't go. We said that if you didn't study and you failed, then you weren't allowed to go. Well, but, and all these excuses come. The parent's role in this, in kind of cutting off the big struggle, needs to be a response similar to, this is what we decided, and this is what happened. And then that's the end of the argument. And I often encourage my parents just to walk away of, that's it. like I don't have anything else to say. There's really nothing else that as a parent you can say. I know as a parent we kind of, you may want to assert your power as a parent, but it doesn't matter. Like they're not going, if they're 19 or younger and they don't have a car or whatever, like they're not leaving, they're not going anywhere. So it's being very finite and concrete of, this is what I said, and we're not going to have this conversation anymore. And that immediately takes the dopamine out of the equation. They're not getting any kind of stimulus. And they may, depending on the age of the child, they may tantrum or get very upset. But after repeated, after repeating this cycle so many times, they'll get used to that. Well, they said no, so that means no. That's the end of it. And it may take a while, and it may kind of pop up again, like when they become a teenager, just because that's what teenagers do, and that's fine. But the idea is to stick with what you say and just kind of cut the conversation off there. So that's what I would suggest as far as getting out of the big struggle, because ADHDers love to argue, even if we're wrong. As far as discipline, that can help kind of lead into some discipline. What I will say, in terms of how to discipline, I think the best thing that you can do is have very short-term punishments, very short-term. What I've had a lot of success in is having a finite amount of time of doing whatever the ADHDer likes to do. So if it were me when I was 10 years old, it was, you are allowed to play video games for 60 minutes every day. And if you do something that we don't like, or that you're not supposed to, so many minutes gets taken off. And so many minutes from there, and so many minutes from there. What my parents, in their infinite wisdom, and they didn't really know because nobody knew anything about ADHD or anything like that back then, but what they did is, if you fail this test, you don't do well, you don't study, then you can't play video games for a month. Well, as an ADHDer, we have two frame of references as far as time is concerned. We have right now, and I've already forgotten about it. It doesn't exist. And so I would recognize, okay, I'm being punished once I want to play video games, or once the weekend comes, because I was only allowed to play video games during the weekend. But after that first weekend of like, oh, this sucks, I can't play video games anymore, that second weekend, it was neither here nor there. It didn't matter. Like I knew, so there was no attachment to punishment. So I distinctly recall being punished for like an entire grade year from no video games. And after that first week, it just didn't matter. Like I found other things to do with my time. And that also did not inform like how well I tried to do in school, because it was, well, I've already been punished for the whole school year, so what do good grades matter? What incentive do I have to work towards anything? I already can't play video games. That's the number one thing that I want to do. So everything else is just kind of secondary to that. So there was no incentive to do better, and there was no incentive to try to gain that back, because the punishment was so like long term. So to sum up, make these punishments very, very short, and I would even go week to week. If you can get all of your homework turned in this week, then on Sunday you can go to your friend's house, or on Sunday you can do whatever it is you want to do, or Saturday you can do whatever you want to do. Or even depending on the age of the child, it may be if we get a note from the school teacher, like you can't watch TV tonight. Like that's the immediate goal, not you can't watch TV for the whole week, because again, after that first day, it's like neither here nor there. And that way they also have something to work towards the next day. I guess just basically find what your child likes the most and start pulling things away from that. So like I said before, it may not be a thing of you can't play video games or watch TV all night, but you have five less minutes to watch TV, because you have now this allotted time slot of time. And that also helps curb the behavior of, not the first day or the first time you try this, but after subsequent tries, it becomes a thing of every time you argue, you lose 5 minutes. And then they want to argue again because they want to get, into that big struggle. Well, you've lost another 5 minutes. Well, crap. Now I only have, 50 minutes. And then I'm going to argue about that. All right, you lost another 5 minutes. And then as that time dwindles, maybe the first time they probably, more often than not, because we're so stubborn as ADHDers, what will probably happen is they'll probably, that very first day, is use up all of their tries and they don't have anything. But the next time and the following time, it'll get few and far between, because it's like, oh wait, I need to gain control of myself, because I know that mom or dad is going to stick to this plan of so many minutes of what I really, really want. And that's how we can kind of help curb that behavior, or at least discipline them in some way that's very constructive, and it gives them the power of control. It puts them in control of their own actions. Whereas if it's like, go to your room, or you don't have video games or TV for the whole month, there's no control. They have no control of their life, it could seem to them. Which kind of segues us into a really good question that we had yesterday. I think it came up about lying. I think that's a really good question too. And why we as ADHDers, when we're younger, or maybe even when we're older, why we lie so much, and how to kind of help your child not lie so much. And I think it's so much deeper than I think anyone really realizes, because lying comes from a place of, I don't want to get caught. And I think the vast majority of the world, to an ADHDer, operates from this is what you're doing wrong, this is bad, and now you have to be punished. If you can imagine being in school, being somewhere so rigid and structured, like our public school systems can be, for the ADHDer, it's sit down, be quiet, stop asking questions, stop doing this, stop doing that, stop doing this, stop doing that. And they're constantly like in trouble. And it may be a small thing like, hey, we're not talking about that right now. But it may be, given our teacher's level of patience, it may be worse than that. It may be them getting very upset, or very frustrated, or maybe even a little passive aggressive, non-intentionally, but because they're so exhausted with these behaviors. I think the lying comes from a place of, I'm in trouble all the time and I'm always doing something wrong. And here's an opportunity where I may be able to skirt that shame of doing something wrong by lying. And it may not even be a thing of like, I never get caught when I lie, so that's why I always lie. It may just be, I'm going to try to not get caught this time, because I've been in trouble all day from the teacher, or I've been in trouble all day from mom or dad, or sit down, don't do that, don't talk out of turn, or whatever, don't interrupt me. We're coming from such a negative place that lying is just the excuse that I'll give the ADHDer, is lying is a reprieve from some sort of negativity. So I hope that frames why your ADHDers may be lying, and I hope that it informs how you approach their behaviors, because if we can maybe even thank them or shed light on the good things that they're doing, then they may not feel such a need to find a moment of, a non-negative stimulus or a non-negative response. And then they won't have to lie, because they are doing, attention is being called upon them during more positive times rather than all negative times. So I hope that answers the question. If not, or if you want more, if you all want more, you want me to expound on that, let me know in the comments below. Our last question of the day is on confabulation, which is an issue of memory and remembering things wrong, or remembering things not as they were, and kind of remembering things in a way that maybe they didn't happen, which is not something that I really have ever thought of. However, what we do know about ADHDers is we have really crappy memory. I think if you're a parent and you ever walk into a room and you're like, why am I in here? That is the case of the ADHDers like 10 times more often. It could be them working on a math problem, them hearing or seeing something outside, or their dog, bumps into their leg or whatever. And it's like, I completely forgot what I was doing. And then it's like, well, I'm just going to get up and go here. And it's like, no, we were supposed to be doing homework. And, they're in the hallway, and it's like, how did you get here? Why are you here? You're supposed to be doing this. that's a memory issue. It's an issue of us like encoding the right information in our brains. And that's because we're so distractible that our brain doesn't have time to like encode all of that stuff and make it concrete. So this idea of confabulation is not an issue of like maybe self-perception or lying or anything else. It may be just an issue of your child's brain is moving so fast that they do not have time to properly encode step by step or what things are happening when, or the sequence of things as they're happening. So that's why we get from our ADHDers, that's why we get a lot of, why did you do that? I don't know. Because they're moving so fast that their actions are just impulsive, like we know, and they're so quick that they may not even know why they did it. It would just pop in their head, so they did. So I think maybe a really good way to help with that confabulation is trying to help your son or daughter slow down, which can sound super patronizing, I know. But what I mean by calm down is try to give them some sort of mindfulness practice. And that can look like literally anything, as long as they are conscious that they are focused on one thing, even if it's just for a second. Then you can build more and more awareness and mindfulness into their life. I know that it's been maybe 6 months since I've started a mindfulness practice every other morning, and my ability to regulate my impulses, my ability to basically have a filter on what I say is greater. I have a better filter on what I say instead of just kind of not shouting out, but like at work when someone says something that I don't agree with, I usually like, oh, that's not true, or I don't think that, or I think you're wrong, which kind of frame me as not a nice person, but because I have that filter, I'm able to say this is why I think you're wrong, but it's much more tactful, or it's framed in such a way where they can see my point of view, or we can all see different points of view. But anyways, so helping them slow down, giving them some sort of mindfulness practice that they can use throughout their day, or even just in the morning. I know with some of my ADHD clients, I make glitter jars, and so you get a jar, you fill it with like glitter glue and hot water, and then you tighten it, you shake it, and it's like all the glitter goes everywhere, and then eventually the glitter settles, which lasts all of like 30 seconds, which is a really long time for a young ADHDer. But shaking that up in the morning, all right, we're gonna shake this up, and you're gonna just watch it, and this is how you're gonna start your day. Just giving them a 30 seconds of intense, mindful focus can help frame up literally the rest of their day. And it's something to build on. It is scaffolding for them to build other mindfulness practices on. And if they can slow down for that, then they may be able to slow down when time comes for like writing homework down. That's a really good example of the bell's ringing, the teacher's writing homework down, and it's like everyone's leaving, the bell's ringing, which means I need to leave, but I need to do this homework, but I'm going to be late to this class. What may happen once they built this mindfulness practice is a deep breath. I can see that is what the homework is. I'm going to write that down calmly, legibly, and then pack up my stuff and leave. And so if we can frame their life around being able to be aware of what's going on in their actions, then they can slow down just a little bit. So I hope that answers that question. So yeah, that's all the questions I had prior to the Facebook Live. Does anyone have any questions before we cut out about anything that I talked about anything? I'm an open book. It doesn't matter. Whatever questions you guys have, I'm very open to answering them. So for our listeners who may not, or our viewers who may not know this, I do this every Monday at noon. If you have questions, I usually post a reminder that I'm going to do a Facebook Live, and you can post questions in there, or you can usually just direct message me on Facebook the question. You'll get an automated response saying that we can't have a conversation, but if you want to ask questions for the Facebook Lives, then you can ask it in there. And yeah, So if you guys don't have any other questions, or if they come up after the Facebook Live, just comment in this video, and I'll get back to you as quick as I can. All right? Well, thanks you guys for tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys again next week.